be Just Wanna Fly Day.
It is. Same to you.
God, I was trying to get you to dance in backstage. You weren't dancing today. How are you, G?
It's fun.
I was I was busy reading our guest.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty interesting, or sounds like he's interesting and got quite a background. So I'm looking forward to meeting Jim. And anyway, let's go talk about weather first. How is it by everybody?
Ooh, cold.
Cold?
It
What's
got
cold to you?
Well, it is. No, it's really on my.
60 is cold to you.
Well, yeah, compared to Wisconsin, but it is cold. The storm came through yesterday or whenever it was, but it got cold after the storm,
Okay.
which I'm not used to. It got cold. It's like low 30s. I mean, low 40s.
I see you're wearing your EAA shirt even.
I am.
Wow. All right. G, what's temperature like down in Orlando, Florida?
I think she's froze. Oh, there she goes.
G, come back.
Trying to troubleshoot my internet. Seems a little choppy today.
Yeah. So what do you got for weather down by you?
It's actually not bad today. It's nice and cool for Florida, and no rain today. It was actually very nice wind today for those who had time to go out and fly. I didn't, but I was thinking about how nice it was.
And us up here in central Wisconsin, we got some snow the other day, so we are not brown and yucky. We're white. Couple inches of snow. We're supposed to get some more snow in the next couple of days, and next week it's supposed to be 14 below, a high of, I think, 4 below. I'm not looking forward to that. Montana, Tim says it's 13 below there right now, so we're going to be getting his cold pretty soon. So great. So anyway, I do want to say send out prayers to all the people that saw the news tonight. Up in Lake Tahoe, there was a big avalanche, and they had a whole bunch of skiers buried in the snow, and they figured some of them were 10 feet under snow. So I did watch that they got one out, and he was alive. So I was happy to see that. So just send out prayers to the Lake Tahoe area, and hopefully everybody can come out alive. So anyway, let's bring Jungle Jim in. Hi, Jim.
Hi there.
So where the heck are you?
I'm currently at Patrick Space Force Base, so that puts me about 15 miles south of Cape Canaveral, Florida, right on the Atlantic coast.
Oh, okay. And what are you doing there?
You know what? We're just spending the winter. We sold our house about 16 months ago up in Germantown, right out there by Milwaukee, and took advantage of the opportunity to, get out and travel the country while we could. So we did the first part of our trip was let's see, we did 10 months and 17,000 miles. We hit 40 states and did a whole clockwise trip around the country. So we did that last year. We spent summer in West Dallas, and then we headed south again. And the good news is in April, we're going to be building a new house over in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. So we'll be heading back up that way in April to, put our roots back down out there.
And you went back to Wisconsin. Oh.
Yeah, when you have two sons living in West Bend, Mama gets to have her kids close by.
Yeah. I get it. So, but what are you doing? How did you say you're on an Air Force base?
Yes. Yeah, I'm retired Air Force. So one of the perks of being retired Air Force is that you can stay on military installations. So they have a really nice campground here. It's like $30 a night, which is pretty cheap given all that. And we're just kind of laying low, enjoying Florida, getting out around and just kind of hang out.
Huh. And how many years do you have to be in to get those nice benefits like that?
Typically, when you retire, it's at 20 years.
20 years? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I had 13 years active and 8 years in the reserves in Wisconsin, so that got me 21
Wow.
years.
Nice. Very nice. All right. So let's quick say hi to see who's all in here. We got Joseph Sibley just showed up. Scuba. Hey, Scuba. Bill H. Montana. My husband. Justin Williamsport Windwalkers. Kramer. And Linda's in here. Nightbot. My Nightbot. My little pet. John Wayne. Justin was real happy with your giveaway last week, and that was so kind of you to give away 2 hats. That was awesome. So, looks like that might be it about right now. If I didn't say your name, I'm sorry. Yell at me in the comments. Kevin Houston's in here. Let's take a second to give a thumbs up for Jim for taking time out for tonight to hang out with us and drill him with some questions. So, all right. Deweese or G, do you want to go first? Deweese, you're on mute. Hi, Munchkin.
Can you tell us what you fly and what type of licenses you have?
Sure. So flown quite a lot of things actually, which is fun. But the big project that I had for myself starting in 2014 is I built a B-Light Ultra Cub. Not real well known, not super popular, but it's a miniature Piper Cub that was powered with a half VW engine. So I built it from scratch from plans and did all the heavy lifting to put it together, and flew that as an ultralight. I'll be the first to admit that it was not a legal ultralight. It's very tough these days to build a legal ultralight for 254 pounds. But yeah, so I flew that, and I got about 5 or 6 years of flying in that. Unfortunately, about 16 months ago, I had my final uh, emergency crash landing, and that pretty much did it in. I decided to sell all the parts, and so I currently don't have a plane at this point in time. And so once we get settled back in, and I've got some time, I'll be looking for something else. But I do have time in a Quicksilver MX. I've got time, let's see, in a Drifter. There's a Quicksilver, trying to remember what else. I've probably flown about a half dozen different ultralights through the years. First did my initial ultralight training when I was still in the Air Force back in 1992 with the United States Ultralight Association. And as I moved from base to base, I tried to keep flying. So I flew in California, I flew in Colorado, I flew out in New Jersey, but I was always busy, and I just never managed to actually solo with the USUA. And so then, when I was building my airplane, I was at the same time pursuing my sport pilot rating. So I got my sport pilot ticket in 2016, and I've been holding on to that and flying just about anything I can get my bottom into when the chance comes around.
Nice. Got any? There's a delay.
You mentioned a crash. Would you?
You know
Would
what?
you like to?
I've actually had 6,
Ooh.
which there's a friend of mine up in Alaska, Lars Gleitzman, who is the owner of Oratex, the Better Aircraft Fabric Company, and he's like, Jim, you're the one guy I know who's had that many crash landings or emergency landings. Let me put it that way. So my first one is out there on my YouTube channel. A lot of people have seen that. I I put that on YouTube and I got 50,000 views in about 10 days. So it really took off. Turned out that one, when I was doing test flights for my airplane around the local airport in Hartford, I was usually flying with about a quarter tank of gas just to get up, check out everything. And I took one day and I decided to fill it all the way up to the very tip top of the fill neck. And I didn't realize that the vented gas cap was not vented, and I did not have adequate venting on the fuel tank. So my engine quit as I was coming back to the airfield, and I had to put it down hard into a cornfield. So that was my first crash landing. Um, I had an oil leak one time, so I had an emergency landing there. Um, I had another time where the throttle cable came loose, and I had to put the airplane down in the swamp about 150 yards short of the runway. This last one that I had the engine in for some maintenance, and as I was starting to check it out, I knew the engine just really wasn't delivering as much power as I liked. I decided to go ahead and fly, and I was going to do about a 40-minute flight up to Math Airfield near Columbus, Wisconsin. And we got about 5 or 10 minutes from the airfield, and it just nothing felt right. So I put it down into a field safely, landed on a road in the field. My buddy turned around and went back because he was going to get his car and we were going to tow it home. So I checked everything out. I ran up the engine. Everything looked good. I decided, you know what? I'm going to take off and fly home. I don't want to have to mess with trying to trailer it back. And I took off, and I just, again, was not getting power. Was coming up on some power lines, and I said, shoot, I'm going to have to climb over these power lines. And 99% sure I put it into a power on stall, came over the other side and just mushed into the ground. It hit hard, broke the prop, and that was it. So from that one, and I had my airplane up for sale at the time. So there's a lesson learned. If you have your plane for sale, stop flying it. So I've had 6 emergency landings that made it, exciting, entertaining, and interesting to be a pilot and to fly experimental.
So you've got 9 lives too.
3 left.
Be careful. And did your wife ever fly with you?
When I did my sport pilot in the Piper Cubs up at Hartford, Cub Air Flight, if anybody's ever heard of that, tremendous group of folks. They do really well. And so, she, all through the years, I've had the dream of getting my own airplane. And so when the opportunity came to go for a flight, she's like, yeah, let's go. Well, yeah, we had about a 15-minute flight, and she needed me to take it back down because she just really didn't enjoy being in a small airplane. So she flew with me the one time, and she'll fly on commercial airlines, but the light stuff, she's going to leave it to me and to the rest of us.
All right.
You are in EAA Chapter 1, is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Are there any special benefits to being in Chapter 1?
Bragging rights are usually the best thing, right?
Just bragging rights.
They started out as a traditional EAA chapter, and then as soon as they opened the door for ultralight chapters, they were the first ones to jump up and grab onto ultralight chapter 1. And in the early days, chapter 1 was it was huge. They had about I'm told they had somewhere upwards of 120 members. Very active. They had a very nice local field, and in the early days, they actually were the strongest force to support the ultralight zone up at Oshkosh. So every year you would have ultralight chapter 1 people all over the place, practically running the show, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And then over the years, what happened was that the field we had, the folks who were running it were super generous. It was their private land. They had a nice bar there. People were parachuting, just a real neat activity center. And they retired and they sold the property. And everybody that was there took off in about 10 different directions to their, more local fields. And that was probably in 2005. And so from that point on, it really became difficult for Chapter 1 to maintain a big active flying membership. So when I was president, we had about 55 members, but only about 10 that were actively flying. And I think from what I understand, that's pretty typical of a lot of these ultralight chapters. They have a hard time They'll get members, right? They'll have 20, 30 members, but only a handful will be actively flying. And I think that reflects our demographic. We have a lot of older pilots that have been in the sport for a long time. And, it's for them, it's become more of a social activity rather than an actual participation sport. Um, so that's, we're seeing the same kind of thing with Ultralight Chapter One and trying to, find ways to bring in new blood, get people interested. And while I was president, I made a really big effort to spread our envelope to invite light sport pilots, PPGs, trikes, right? PPCs, to really open the doors for anybody who was involved in the lighter end of aviation to help reinvigorate the chapter. And, we brought in a few people, but it's just kind of a challenge. I mean, anytime I'd find somebody posting a video or I'd be out on Facebook and looking for anybody in the Wisconsin area, I was trying to reach out and talk to them and say, hey, come on over here. We've got a really neat group. We're down by Milwaukee. Um, so it's a benefit to be part of Chapter One from that standpoint. We still have really strong ties with Oshkosh. But, like many chapters, they're still struggling to make sure that they stay relevant and active and engaged.
I'm in chapter 75 with Eric, and we just showed up and they looked at us like, what do you fly? But they get it.
Yeah, yeah.
So Justin's asking, what's the distance that you can fly with that ultralight on a tank of fuel?
Yeah, excellent question. The question really becomes a question of what is your airspeed. You have 5 gallons of gas and the kind of engine that you have as well. So if you're flying a two-stroke, a Rotax, something like that, you're going to burn 2 gallons, 2.5 gallons per hour. And with a 5-gallon tank, that gives you an hour and a half of flying time with a safety reserve. Then the question becomes, how fast can you fly? So if you're going to fly 60 miles an hour and you've got an hour and a half, then you have a 90-mile range. But if you have a headwind, then your speed over the ground is going to be reduced. So instead of going 60 miles an hour, you might only be doing, say, 50 miles an hour over the ground, and that'll cut back on your distance. The flip side is if you have a tailwind, that same 10-knot tailwind, and you're doing 70 miles an hour, then you can go that much further. So there'd be a lot of times when someone would fly out to an airport or fly in or, something like that, and they'd have a great tailwind. And you're like, oh, this is awesome, right? I can fly all this distance on my 5 gallons of gas. But then on the way home, you now have a headwind, and you might not be able to get quite as far with that headwind. So when you go to plan that flight, you might say, hey, you know what? I might need to land somewhere partway home and get some extra gas so I can get the rest of the way home. So that's the challenge with ultralights. I tell people it's like riding a mini bike in the good old days. You've got your bigger airplanes; those are like your street bikes, and the big fast airplanes are driving your fancy cars. But ultralights really are more of a mini bike type of experience.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me? I'm not a motor person, so could you tell me what a half VW is? What the
Absolutely.
motor? What that
Yeah.
is?
You remember the old Volkswagen Beetle? You had your
Yeah.
little 4-cylinder engine.
Yeah, I had a
A half
couple of.
VW. Yeah, exactly. If you
Yeah.
imagine that case is made out of magnesium alloy,
Uh-huh.
you could take a handsaw and you could cut that case right in half and have 2 cylinders. And so Great Plains and a couple other places, you can get plans for how to cut that case in half, balance it, do all the work that you need to do, and you can turn that 80 horsepower VW engine into a 40 horsepower 2-cylinder engine. So they
Oh.
call that the half VW engine.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's the thing I got, a lot of people question why you want to use a half VW. It's a heavy engine. It doesn't produce the same kind of power as a four-stroke with your Rotaxes because they'll operate at a much higher RPM. These ones you get, instead of that 2.5 gallons per hour, you'll get 1.5 gallons per hour on a four-stroke engine. It operates at a lower RPM. And when I was building my airplane, I wanted to go for a vintage look. And the VW engine really gave me that, more of that put, put, put engine sound to it.
Yeah.
So that was, the thing that I realized I was going to make a trade-off, but that VW engine for me was kind of ideal for the plane I was building.
And how long did it take you to build that plane that was in the intro?
That was probably a good 2-year project. The usual nights and weekends. Um, I started out in a 10 by 20 storage unit, and I built the fuselage, and I started working on the wings. I realized at that point that I was out of space, so then I was able to get some sharing some hangar space up at Hartford, and that gave me lots of the room that I needed to finish building the airplane. But we had that first winter that I was building there. I mean, those storage units are not heated, and so I was in there with the little what is it, the little torpedo heater, kerosene torpedo heater, and
Mhm.
I'd be, putting in rivets and, cutting metal and doing all that kind of work. And then I come home and my wife goes, "Oh, geez, you smell bad. You got that kerosene smell." But yeah, that's how I got that started. So it was a fun project. It's like working with the old Tinker Toys, bolting things together and rivets and, those old Tinker Toy kits. Very much like that.
Yeah,
Was
that
that
looked kind of neat.
was that the plane you did the stole competition in?
Um, No, it wasn't in the STOL competition, but I did fly at the ultralight field a couple years ago.
And you
And
did
I and one
stole?
of the yeah, and I did one of the demos that I did in my video was demonstrating how to kind of shorten your takeoff.
Hmm.
And so that was my attempt to try and get STOL. But this plane, unfortunately, with that VW engine,
Wouldn't do.
your climb rate is about 400 feet per minute, which is pretty anemic.
Yeah.
And so this really isn't going to be a STOL bird. I might be able to land short, but that would be about it.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to ask, going back to the Air Force, what did you do in the Air Force?
I was a navigator predominantly. So I did my navigator training, let's see, in 1986. And at that point, they didn't have GPS. So the training I went through was all of the old school traditional navigation. So we learned, of course, everybody learns how to do dead reckoning, which is an ancient art performed by navigators, all of whom are dead. No, it's a joke. Uh, Um, so you learn how to do dead reckoning. So, for instance, to fly from, say, Los Angeles to Hawaii, right? You've got 1,500 miles. You got to do the math. I forget how long it is now. Um, and so you learned all that. You learned how to do the weather charts, all those kind of things. And then we learned to use the sextant. And, you'd get up and learn how to triangulate using the stars, doing all that kind of stuff. Um, the let's see, we did the radar navigation, all the kind of things that would prepare you to jump into any airplane in the Air Force. So it all predates GPS. So we had all that old school training from those days. And then my first airplane was the C-130, so a big 4-engine cargo plane.
Been on one of those.
Um, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's one of the kind of airplanes, they don't fly super high. They'll get up to about 25,000 feet. And they don't fly super fast. You're doing
Mhm.
It sounds fast for us, but in the airplane world, it's not real fast when you're doing about 230 knots. So, you take a long time to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. And I was the GPS. So the pilots, the whole crew relied on me to get us from, say, um, Gander Bay in Newfoundland over to, say, Ireland would be one of the routes that we would fly.
Hmm.
And that was all, again, dead reckoning, sextant. You'd be looking at the stars, the sun, what have you, to get you from point A to point B. And oddly enough, I'm here, so it must have worked.
Old-fashioned navigation.
Old fashioned. So that was about 20% of the work that I did. The remaining 80% was flying low level in the C-130s and the bigger airplane, the C-141s. So we would be at 300 feet, 225 miles an hour, zipping around through the mountains, practicing tactical low level, and then dropping, cargo out the back of the airplane. So that could be anything from troopers to, 500-pound drums of ammunition or beans or what have you, road graders, tanks, jeeps, all that kind of stuff. So we would practice that all the time. So the majority of my flying time was doing low level missions. And that's a very interesting, very exciting kind of work. I mean, it's a fast paced. You got to be on top of your game, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did predominantly. I was also I graduated with a computer science degree, so I got into communications for one tour and also was in command and control. And then my reserve job for the last 8 years of my duty in the state of Wisconsin, I was a liaison officer to the Civil Air Patrol. So it turned out to be a really interesting job. Did a lot of work for um, all of the Civil Air Patrol units that are in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. We covered a pretty broad area.
Did you see what Eric typed?
Thank God there's Garmin for navigation. Okay, Eric, we're going to have words. What are you talking about? No matter where I go, there I am. And I have an impeccable sense of direction.
My friend Bonnie wants to know, what plane did you fly at Oshkosh at the ultralight field 2 years ago? She probably took a picture of it.
Yeah, that's the one in the videos that were out there for the intro. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
my Be-Light Ultra Cub with the red and white wings, the blue fuselage, and the tail with the rudder had the red and white stripes on it.
Okay.
So very vintage looking.
All right. Luis, do you got any questions?
I had a question for the group, and I know we've got somebody here from Montana, and I'm a Montana boy. So
Well,
anytime I see someone from Montana,
yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah, where in Montana, right? You know, what school did you go to?
He's in Great Falls, and
Okay.
he's Hutterite.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I lived in Plains, Montana. So that's probably, I don't know, 3 hours from Great Falls, I would guess. And when I was a senior, we got to go over and visit a Hutterite community, and just it was a day trip, so we got to see how are they living, what do they do, got to meet a lot of the folks there, talk to the kids that were our same age and stuff. So it was a very interesting opportunity to get out and meet some of the local folks that are Hutterites out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, he's the naughty one, and John Wayne says, and he's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So he taught himself how to fly paramotor, and we met him down at the world's largest paramotor fly-in down in
Georgia.
I was trying to think of the town, Americus, Georgia. And we kind of took him under our wing, and he actually came back and stayed with us for a couple weeks before he headed home. And he's kind of like our second son.
Fantastic. So, wow, that's great.
I'm usually yelling at him, telling him to fly safe, and Eric just shakes his head. So,
hey, that's great, though.
Yeah. Oh, she decided to join us again.
Sorry about that.
It seems like it's better.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
She messaged me and said that her computer decided to do a reboot, so because it was acting up. So, yeah, but Tim
Did I miss all the fun?
Oh no, not at all. He was talking a little bit about his plane and wanted to know where Montana was from. So,
can you tell us a little bit about the USUA?
The USUA. So I'll give you what I have gleaned from a lot of research. So in the last 6-8 months, I've been doing more research there's the Aero Sports Connection. So anybody on the paramotor side of things probably knows ASC. They've been giving out exemptions for training and things. So they're the authority on that side. And that is Jim Stevenson. So I've had an opportunity to meet Jim Stevenson. And USUA is the United States Ultralight Association. So they go back to, again, some of the earliest days of ultralight training. And what's significant is that there were 3 agencies that held exemptions for ultralight instructors back in the day. That was USUA, EAA, and ASC. So USUA if you're looking on the spectrum of who was very diligent to who was less diligent, USUA was the one that had a terrific program. So they had certified instructors, they had an insurance program. You could join USUA and get your pilot certificate through USUA. So when I was doing my initial ultralight training back, like I said, in the early 90s, um, I was out in San Bernardino, California, and there's an aero park out there. So I joined USUA and got my initial flight training there. Um, the reason that's relevant to me today is because USUA is one of the organizations that I've been trying to reach out to, again, and to talk more about what we can do to increase the pipeline of ultralight instructors. So we can circle back to that some more later. Um, so these days, USUA is a mere shadow of what it used to be because with the sport pilot rules that came about, 2005? I think it was around 2005 when they came out. And they basically canceled all the exemptions. Um, Everybody pretty much, kind of threw their hands in the air and said, okay, the exemptions are gone and we're not going to be doing anything with ultralight instructors anymore. So USUA then kind of just became a placeholder at that point to support existing ultralight enthusiasts and ultralight pilots. Um, and so, again, I say they're kind of a shadow of what they were formerly for that. EAA, much in the same vein. Um, One thing that I found out, and I think this is relatively common for most states, and most people don't know, that if you're flying an ultralight, at least in Wisconsin statute says you must have a registered ultralight. And EAA is one of the organizations that provides aircraft registration, as does USUA. I'm not sure about Aerosports Connection, but it was something that was a surprise to me. But EAA offers that service, and so does USUA. So, compared to what they used to do with a full suite of services to support instructors, to support new pilots, right, to provide all these ancillary registration and things like that, newsletters, that's all been cut way back. And so, um, not much going on in that regard for USUA. But it is good to see that Jim Stevenson with Aerosports Connection still is pretty vibrant for the paramotor community.
All right. So
There was a
what about
question in the chat that is relevant to this. A question from Bill about the USPPA, the U.S. Powered Paragliding Association. Are you familiar with their work, Jim?
Yes, actually. So one of the things I did as my role
Where do
as
they stand?
chairman for the
It's
council.
dynamic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
It's the
I thought
lag,
there was a
sorry.
follow-on question. So, um, so in my role on the council, every year during AirVenture, I go out to speak to all the vendors and all the booths that are out in the ultralight field. And I have gone over to the USPPA booth a number of times to chat with them. Part of that too was to take advantage of the veterans program that they have for training veterans to be paramotor pilots. So yes, familiar and supportive of the USPPA. In fact, on the council, we have, I got to remember his name right now. We've got representatives from each of the different ultralight communities. So we have fixed wing, we have what we call flex wing, is the PPC PPG community, the weight shift community. So we've got folks that represent the entire spectrum of aviation. Call it types of wings. um, and so yes, so I am familiar with USPPA, and I really like the work that USPPA is doing. In fact, I would love for the fixed wing ultralight community to get some of the uh, excellent treatment that the PPG community is experiencing, because you've got exemptions from the FAA that are tremendous, tremendous, and PPGs are part of the ultralight community, and I don't understand why they're allowing PPGs to get exemptions, but not the fixed wing community. So yes, so that's kind of a long answer for saying, do I know about it?
Did you visit it this last year?
I think I stopped by to say hi and chatted for about 5 or 10 minutes, but I didn't spend a lot of time there this last year.
Oh, who did you find there?
Oh gosh. You know there'd be a quiz. um, it kind of becomes a blur for me because during the show I'm trying to travel around and socialize and just let people get to know who I am, so I can be a conduit for any questions and concerns they have that we can address on the council. So I
It was
apologize. I just can't remember who it was that I ran into.
I was quizzing you because it was Eric and I and Deweese.
Well, yes. Okay. Well, there we go. Because you were still recovering. You were in the chair. You had your foot up, and all that good
Yeah,
stuff. So,
that's when I asked if I
so I
was
was,
drooling.
And she probably was.
Hey, Deweese.
Hey.
Yes, I probably was.
I seem to recall there were like little spit wads stuck to you, but nobody was telling you that you had these things stuck on
That's
you.
Right.
That's Wendy and I were sitting there spitting wads of,
Yeah.
That's it.
little spitballs.
Right. Eric's got a question. And when you build your new home, is it going to have a runway?
Oh yeah.
It'll have as much of a runway as 1 acre will allow. For a paramotor, I think it would be fine, but for anybody else, it could be a stretch.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, well, we've got, I think, under an acre because we kind of got a pie shape yard, and Montana took off and it ran right towards the lake.
If you got the open space, right? That's always a good thing.
Yeah,
And the climb rate. I will be the one who says you have to have a climb rate.
we had a rescue boat out there just in case. It was the neighbor kid that was fishing. So we told him if the idiot goes in the water, pick him up. He belongs to us.
I hope he had a motor on that boat. It wasn't a
He-
rowboat.
It was a trolling motor.
Gee.
There we go. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah, only for Montana.
I'm trying to remember
Let's see.
Justin's
Fox.
Justin Fox. There we go. He's our PPG rep on the council.
Yes.
It took me a while for that brain cell to where it splits again.
Looking at see if there's any questions in here. Oh gosh, Travis is talking about our rigged wheel again.
yeah, he says I'm rigging the wheel for my friends.
I wanted to circle back around to what we were talking about earlier with you, Jim, being chairman of the EAA Council. I wanted to ask you what you have been doing for instructors and what you have planned in the future.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, for the council, for anybody who's not familiar with, EAA has a number of different councils that support different aspects of their community. So they have a home builders council, they have a vintage council, they have all these different councils. And so we also have an ultralight and light sport aviation council. So I've been a member now for 5 years. I've been chairman for 3. So I've got another year to go. It's a 4-year stint. And so talking with the previous chairman, both of us were looking at it, what can we do to support and promote the community? What can we do to increase participation in the sport? And so for us, that's been a real big challenge because what we see for a number of years, we've seen on the EAA website that the 2 pages, there's 2 pages on their website that get the most traffic. I don't know if it's still current, but for a number of years it was that way, was ultralights and PPGs. We're getting the most traffic on the EAA website. And so what we saw was a tremendous wave of interest on the light side for the things that we love to do. And so the question for the council was, what can we do to capitalize on that wave of interest and turn that into participating pilots? So we started looking at a couple of different things. We put out a training guide. So we have a training guide for weight shift. We have a training guide for fixed wing. We didn't do much for PPG because, to their credit, the PPG community is very well organized and self-contained. So we didn't really dive much into that. But we did then work to bring extra people in for the council so that we had good representation across all of our different components of the sport, right? Depending on the type of wing that you fly. So once we got that done, then we were looking around saying, what's the next thing? And the thing that, as I drew out a diagram for the council, if you look at the life cycle of a pilot, you have somebody who comes in who's interested, and then they take that interest and they start flying. Now, hopefully they get an instructor, but they go and they learn to fly. And then through their flying career, they might decide then that they want to teach other people to fly, follow the instructor path. They might want to then shift into, say, light sport and then get a private pilot license, and stuff like that. So the gateway to aviation, the gateway drug for all of us, is over here on the light side is the opportunity that we have. But as you look at that life cycle, what we found is there's a training gap. There's a training gap for the weight shift guys and for the fixed wing. Again, PPG has been very successful in filling that gap and using the exemption that ASC has brought forward. But when they canceled the old exemption, they were expecting the light sport instructors to pick up and teach ultralight pilots how to fly. But we know that ultralights, because they are low mass, high drag, they handle quite different than GA airplanes. So if you have experience in a Piper Cub, a Cessna 172, or any of the other, variety of different light sport airplanes, and say for instance, you're going to fly a pattern and come in for a landing, you're going to pull the throttle back to idle or about 50% power midfield on your downwind and start a cruising descent to go down through the downwind, base, and then final come in for landing. If you try to do that in an ultralight and pull the pile back to idle, you're going to land at that spot that's down between your feet. Because you have so much drag, you have to push the nose down so steep in order to maintain your airspeed. And it's very unique. What we see with a lot of GA pilots who want to transition into ultralights is they pull that power back and then they waffle their ultralight around the pattern trying to figure out why this thing isn't flying. They come in and try to do a flare like they normally would with a Cub or a 152 or what have you, and they stall at about 10 or 15 feet above the ground because they don't have any momentum. They don't have that inertia from a heavier airplane. And all of a sudden they drop out of the air, they bang the airplane, they break the landing gear, they do something like that. So, and we're seeing that with new pilots as well. So, Montana was successful at teaching himself to fly PPGs. It's like, that's kind of what you had to do with ultralights, 40 years ago. There was no instructors, but we had that whole wave of instructors. So, long story boring, to help you catch up there, one of the things that the council looked at is we are short of instructors. We don't have instructors who have embraced teaching ultralight skills. And so now we've started a new initiative, and I've been working with a lot of folks. Anywhere I can find a light sport CFI, I try to reach out to them and say, hey, what are you doing? Are you teaching ultralights? And I'm seeing about 80% of them don't want anything to do with ultralights. They think they're dangerous. They think they're scary. They think a lot of things about ultralights. The problem also becomes these guys have a business to run. And ultralight pilots don't typically represent a revenue stream for them to support their business, which is unfortunate. So what has happened then is in the intervening now 18 years since the inception of the light sport rules, we have seen a significant decrease in the number of ultralight pilots to begin with, and we've seen a tremendous drop-off. We had approximately 8,000 instructors in 2005. 8,000 ultralight instructors. I recently did my own bit of research on Facebook, and anywhere I could go to find people, I found 15 CFIs who will teach ultralights training. I found about 5 other people who will do buddy training. So they basically sit on the ground with the radio, you get in your 1-seat ultralight, and they'll talk you through training. Not ideal. Or they might have a light sport airplane, and they'll kind of do a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You give me some cash under the table, and I'll show you how to fly. So we're in a pretty tough spot. We're in a really tough spot. So one of the things that I've been working on now is trying to figure out what we can do to increase the number of instructors to obviously promote the sport and help, breathe some new life. We talked about these ultralight chapters that are just, struggling to get members. There's MULA, if you've ever heard of them, the Michigan Ultralight Association. I've gotten to know them tremendously well because one of the guys is on council with me. They have been hugely successful. They've got a light sports CFI in their club. He will do ultralight training. And anytime he shows up at the airfield, he is busy basically from the minute he puts you on the ground till the sun goes down. There's so many people lined up, and their club has jumped up to about 80 members. And I'd say probably 75% of them are actively flying. So that's a tremendous outcome for that. But that's what we're trying to replicate. So there's, a work going on in the background right now to see if there's an opportunity to find some way to increase ultralight instructors. Maybe, not necessarily CFIs, but we're exploring it. And that's why I want to try and tap into the success that the community has created to really capitalize on that. Because I've seen, kind of a dream of mine, right? To be able to take that same kind of energy and excitement and plug that into the ultralight community. But I think the FAA is very reluctant to go that path.
All right.
How long does it take to complete CFI?
So if you're a light sport pilot, so the first, the minimum for light sport pilot is 20 hours of instruction. It's 40 hours for a private pilot. So you have 20 hours of instruction, right? And most people will take longer, but just call it 20 hours. Then you have to get 150 hours of flight time. Once you have 150 hours of flight time, then you can go through the light sport instructor training and become a light sport instructor. So the barrier to entry to become a light sport CFI is actually pretty low. Mm-hmm. But if you understand the cost of fuel and the time it takes, and the average pilot gets about 50 hours a year, so you've got to get your light sport ticket. So you're looking at about 4 years, unless you're a really energetic pilot, to go from being a brand new sport pilot to getting your CFI. And so I call it 4 years, and I'd probably put it at about $10,000 to become light sports CFI.
Yeah.
So Justin, hang on. Justin is saying, I think the insurance for backing a training would be hard to get like it is for PPG.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so. Mark Murray is one of our council members. He's also a light sports CFI over in, I think he's in Alabama. And as part of council, he did some research to find out what's going on with insurance. Insurance rates have gone through the roof. It's become very difficult to get insurance. And there really is no good answer. The insurance companies, I think the challenge for them is that they don't have a big enough pool of policy paying individuals to justify the cost for when they have to pay out. I mean, obviously you have a business to run too. So they've got to have, money in the bank in order to pay for any claims that come out of that. So if we had a bigger pool of instructors, right, should then boil down to the fact that insurance would then become more readily available. So we're kind of in a catch-22. We can't get instructors, and because we can't get instructors, we can't get insurance, right? Yeah. And it's kind of we're stuck there, and it's crazy. I don't know how we break that cycle, but I think the biggest thing would be is to get people in to start training, right? To get an increase the instructor pool, and then we could see some relief on the other side. But those instructors are going to have to be good instructors who are willing to take the risk, because insurance is going to both be expensive and possibly hard to get. Interesting note that we learned from insurance is that it turns out all insurance is underwritten. Doesn't matter where it is or what kind it is, by Lloyd's of London. And they have a whole pyramid of all these different companies and underwriters, but it all boils back to Lloyd's of London. I thought that was a pretty interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah. All right. So Eric's got a question. How do we get younger people involved in flight? We need more young pilots coming in to replace the older retiring pilots.
Yes. So if you've seen my YouTube channel, that was my effort to reach out there. For me, um, the young pilots aren't coming to aviation. It's not like it was back in the 70s and the 80s where ultralight aviation was the extreme sport of the day, and anybody and everybody who wanted a thrill was jumping into aviation, right? Parachuting, all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just took off. It just took off like crazy. But that was pre-internet, right? Pre all these other distractions. The world has changed. So a lot of these young folks, their attention is being split between, a dozen other places, but they're out there on Twitter, right? They're out there on X, they're out there on whatever, right? They're out there on YouTube, they're out there on Facebook. So what we did in chapter 1 when I was president is we pushed extremely hard. We tore down our website, a traditional old website. They had Yahoo groups for chat and all this kind of stuff. And, the old timers were comfortable with that, and paper newsletters and all those things. And I dragged everybody kicking and screaming. We shut down the website. We moved everything to Facebook. And Steve Magic, who had been the president for 15 years, he and I invested in some GoPros, and we started publishing YouTube videos as a way to reach out to the younger audience, to take the sport that we're doing and having so much fun with and putting it out somewhere where the younger audience can find us. The other thing I think is finding ways to be visible. So our chapter was split up between Hartford. We were going down to Racine, and then we were also going over to a third airfield because we had members all over the place. We were scattered, things just weren't working. So we moved to Capitol Drive Airport, which is close to Milwaukee. And the reason we did that is we wanted to be closer to the biggest audience we could find. And so we wanted to, put our events out there. We were talking to the radio stations, trying to be visible to the community and find ways to get them to see us and to recognize what we're doing and show them that it's safe, that it's fun, that it's affordable. Because a lot of us, and what I see, and this is no, challenge necessarily to the PPG community, but we didn't get a lot of PPG pilots to join our ultralight club, even though we definitely had, wide open doors for them to join us. And what I've observed, and I'd sure love your feedback on that, but it sure seems like the PPG community is pretty insular within themselves. And they kind of go and do their own things, and they enjoy the time together with that. And I think that is turning around to kind of bite us in the bottom because we're not putting it out there where everybody can see the great stuff that we're doing.
Right.
Have you seen that in the PPG community? Do you think that's a fair observation, or am I off mark on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Travis did say almost most young folks don't have any money. Is there any type of scholarships or anything like that that would be available to help with training for young people in aviation or in sport pilot?
There's different organizations that provide assistance. So EAA does have a Young Eagles program, and they do have scholarships that are available. So, you work through an EAA chapter, and you can take a young person who's expressed an interest in aviation, and they will have a grant program that will then pay for their aviation training up through private pilot. The Civil Air Patrol is another excellent program. Cadets, and this might have changed since I left in 2011, but cadets could come in and every year apply for a $2,000 grant. And after 4 years, they would have $8,000 that they could have earned and use that to get a private pilot license. So the Civil Air Patrol had a program like that. I was at a taco place just up here at, anyway, we're just up the way, 15 minutes away. And a gentleman was talking, and we I find military guys and we just start talking. We're veterans. And it turns out that he, through his religious organization, actually has a youth program, and they are teaching young people how to fly. And so they take grants and all this kind of stuff. They first do a familiarization, right? So it very much echoes what EAA is doing with Young Eagles. So my point there is that I I I think they were from Tennessee. Never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. But there are groups of aviators, people who are doing aviation, who are bringing those resources forward to help out young people. But they're just kind of hit and miss. They turn up in some of the most unusual places. Um, it might be one of those things that if you have a really good Google search skills, you might be able to track some down in your local area. But they're out there. They very much are.
I know that a lot of people don't realize that EAA chapters are everywhere. All you have to do is just check with your local airports, and you can find EAA chapters.
Yes. Yeah. And on the EAA website, you can do a chapter search on the EAA website, and it'll
Yeah.
list out all the EAA chapters in every state.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways to find that.
Yeah, and like when you asked if about the PPG groups, um, John Wayne here says, which I agree, most other pilots and airports don't want PPG around,
That's
or
true.
we don't want to fly when there's planes and choppers around us. So
That's true.
That is a real common problem. So I communicate quite frequently with a gentleman I know up in Minnesota, and he recently sold his house and moved into an air park, and he's still got his an ultralight. He's got also a light sport airplane. But talking to the pilots there, ultralights are perfectly legal. They're allowed by FAA rules to use it. Same with PPGs to be in that airspace. But a lot of the general aviation pilots just look down their nose at us. I mean, we are the redheaded stepchild of the lightweight. That we're having fun, you know, and sadly, we have enough yahoos out there who've done crazy things to give us a bad reputation. Unfortunately, it's really sad. We fly in a different speed envelope. We have folks who don't understand the traffic pattern. They don't know how to use the radio to, declare their intentions and to let other pilots. So this is kind of pilot courtesy, to be a good member of the aviation community at your airfield. So, I think that's something that any of the flight training really needs to emphasize how to be a good member of your aviation community at your local airfield. Um, in fact, I just had a conversation. I don't know if you've met Wolf Edmonds. Does that ring a bell for anybody?
Who?
no,
Wolf Edmonds. He and I just struck up a conversation. He's a light sport CFI out in Oregon. He also teaches ultralight. And in our conversation, one of the things that he mentioned that he's been very successful with is he's got ultralight pilots who are being basically chased out of the local airport. And he works with the local airport and with the ultralight pilots, first of all, to educate everybody that this is legal to do, that these ultralight pilots are welcomed by the FAA rules and regulations to be there, but also to then help the local airport folks understand how to operate well with these ultralight people. So he's doing the training to teach them all the skills they need, right? What does it mean to hold short of the active runway, right? What do the runway markings mean? What is your local um, uh, frequency, right? To talk to air traffic, right? All that kind of stuff. So he's the one who's going in to be an intermediary, and he says he's been successful in every case that he's engaged in to help local pilots, right? Ultralight pilots in this case, to be able to fly successfully at the local airport. So I thought that was really exciting, and I'm glad to hear there's somebody like him who's doing that work.
well, Luis, do you want to add to that about the airport?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I've had a big argument with an airport up here about being allowed to fly, so it's been an ongoing problem with me. It's a private. Well, it's not a private. It's a airport up here that's public owned airport, but the city, the board members seem to think that they are allowed to put a lock on the gate and keep us out. So it's been a big problem. I've contacted the FAA, and FAA says I've got every legal right to be in there, and they just keep saying nope, stay out. So they finally did tell me where the key was, but told me I still didn't have any right to be in there. But I told them the FAA says I can be in there, so I can. So, but instead of just, it just makes you feel bad to just walk up in there and cause a problem. You don't really want to do that. So
Yeah, yeah.
we haven't flown
Well,
there yet, but we still have the right to do it. But I hate causing such a stir.
sure, yeah.
And it's
You know,
it's just it's not a towered airport. There's nobody out there. It's just out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody uses it. Oh, and
yeah,
then they
we
oh
moved
yeah,
our ultra.
you can use it. Just stay off the tarmac, and don't get on the
Oh, sure.
grass. Don't get on the grass and don't use the tarmac. What?
Well, we had been flying our club. Most of our flying was up at Hartford, which is about half an hour north of Milwaukee, and we moved to Capitol Drive Airport, which is closer to the Milwaukee metro area. And so when we first got there, the first challenge we ran into is that we couldn't get hangars because they needed to have N-numbered airplanes at the airport because uh, the number of N-numbered airplanes influenced their federal funding. So they always
What?
needed to keep track. Yeah, there's a rule on the books. And so, if you're going to have a permanently stationed airplane there, they needed to have like, say, 100 airplanes at the airfield and to preserve the matching funds that the federal government would provide to municipal airports.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't want us to come in there because none of us had N numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to at first just, find a way to share hangars with people who had N numbers. And there was probably 15 derelict airplanes that they kept on the airfield just to keep the N number count up.
Oh, God.
Right. So we could find some space in these hangars for us to park our stuff at the airfield. Then the next thing became is that the FBO, there was just a bunch of the 5 or 6 old timers who would always be working at the FBO to give out gas and, talk to people. None of them were flying, but they were just a bunch of crusty old toads who decided that, you crazy upstart ultralight guys, you're nothing but trouble, right? You're going to do all this, that, and the other thing.
That's
And
it.
so as we came in, of course, I'm a professional aviator coming out of the Air Force to begin with. So when I met them, they were like going, "Oh yeah, they're yahoos, but you're okay." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. We're all together in this."
Mm-hmm.
So we started making our club members operate like they were regular pilots. Use the taxiways, right? Be responsible. If you don't have a radio, get on the radio. If you don't have a radio, then have somebody next to you on the ground who has a radio that can talk on your behalf, right? Something to be able to help us, be able to operate better.
Yeah.
And it took us about a year, maybe 2 years, to really demonstrate to them that we were all that we said we were going to be. And we got in. We held our chapter meetings at the FBO. We invited the staff to come over and hang out with us, right? Food is a good way to break down barriers. Free food, free drinks, all that kind of good stuff. So we worked really hard to kind of schmooze the local guys and to prove to them that, we were good pilots, that we could be good members of the community and that we could support them.
Well,
But if they won't let you in the gate,
we tried that. We even tried okay, we'll go to the board meeting, the airport board meetings. They won't even let us go to the airport board meeting, which is public. Oh no, we can't even do that. So what kind of people are these? I don't know.
yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. It really is. And it's a shame.
Bad. It's bad.
They're missing out. They're missing out on a lot of the great stuff that we do. They really have no clue.
Yeah, that's true. Crusty old toads.
Like you you said, the 100 planes. Our little airport, we have to have 15 planes there registered, and if we lose one, we could lose our funding. So
Yeah,
it
right.
is definitely true.
Yeah. And that's like I said,
then-
the airfield manager, he's the one who had like three derelict airplanes that are not going to fly, but he purchased them purposely for getting their N number, and he keeps renewing their N numbers, even though they don't have an airworthiness certificate. And because they have that, then they're still legal to count for the census on the field.
That's bad.
Well, John Wayne says he's lived up in the Wisconsin area at some point, and he says Crandon Airport is friendly. So, but John Wayne, they have earthquakes now there. They just had an earthquake there this last week.
Really?
2.5 on the Richter scale, and
Wow.
yeah. And Gaston, going back, he says we fly too slow, and he says
Yeah.
we're afraid of those fixed wings. So yes,
See, what was it we had? Was it 4 years ago where they had the twin engine airplane that collided with the PPG down in Texas?
yeah,
Or was it a single, but right?
Yeah.
The PPG was at what, 5,000 feet? So not in a normal altitude envelope, but definitely legal. And
yep,
this other guy flying with his head in the cockpit, not even looking out. And closure rate was so fast, I'm sure, would have been hard to pick out.
Yeah.
But that was a very sad, event. And to me,
right.
that's just more evidence that, we really need to get better instruction for all of our pilots who are flying so that they know how to see and avoid and be safe.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're gonna do the spinny wheel of what does Travis call it? Rigged spinny wheel. Real quick here. All right, here we go. Good luck, everyone. Oh my gosh.
I'm rooting
Linda.
for you. I'm rooting for you, Travis. No, it's not Travis.
No, it was Linda.
Well, we didn't see
Linda,
it.
let me know if you got your stuff yesterday or today. Scuba, did you get yours? I
Sorry,
sent stuff
Travis.
out. And I think John Wayne, I think I sent something to you. I can't remember. Anyway, oh, it was for Brian Franz. Bonnie, you didn't see the wheel. It was
Nobody saw the wheel.
what the heck?
Go ahead. I can't
I
see
did
you.
I did a screen share. Okay, let's do it again.
Uh-oh.
What?
Oh, Linda. Sorry, Linda.
Yeah.
Linda says, what?
No, I'll send her something. Okay, do you guys see Linda on here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do it again. Come on, Travis.
Come on, Travis.
Oh, there went his name.
Just passed, Travis. Oh, one
He's
wheel.
in.
Oh. Congratulations, Susan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Travis. It's just not your year or last year.
Rigged.
It's rigged.
All right. So, Jim, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Oh gosh. I could
Bill
go
H.
on all day.
I think
know.
Bill H. said you need to come back and talk more about this kind of stuff.
Yep.
So,
I'm happy to come back. It's a passion of mine. There's so much going on and so much I'd like to do. Um, the big piece for me right now is ultralight instructors. If we could find a way to crack the code. But unfortunately, I think the deck is stacked against us just because of the old exemptions and the abuses that were occurring. But there's so much, right? There's so much, And if we want to talk, weather or navigation or any of those
yes.
kind of things that people might, who was it that flew cross country to come up to Oshkosh this last year? The young guy that flew up.
Harley?
Remember that?
oh, there was
Yeah.
a young girl.
Oh,
that
the
flew
girl.
up
Girl,
from
was it?
Tennessee.
Oh, the year before it was a young guy, wasn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, right?
Little girl, yeah.
Yeah, weather for ultralights. I don't know how much you talk about stuff like that. Yeah, all about it. There's lots of stuff. Love to come back anytime you're bored and you need something interesting. I can fill up your time.
Yes, navigation would be awesome.
And your wife must be standing over you, keeping you honest tonight.
She's sitting right over there. She just had a question for me. I think our dinner needed to get in the fridge.
Oh, so
Or we can talk. Yeah, she's waving. Hello. Or
so
we can
one
talk project management or agile development. Let's talk agile. I love that. That's great.
Yes.
That's like my passion.
gotta calm down.
Oh, Steve Krieger. I see Eric's statement there about Steve Krieger.
Yeah,
He is phenomenal. And of course, he's chairman for the ultralight field during AirVenture.
yep.
So Steve Krieger, tremendous guy. I like Steve.
He was my instructor and um, did a good job. Now I just gotta get my foot healed up so I can continue on.
Well, there's two parts to that. A, heal your foot. B, don't do that again.
No kidding.
It's like, doctor,
Yeah,
doctor, it hurts when I do this. It's like,
yeah,
don't.
says the guy that crashed how many times? I mean, landed hard.
Hey, I got all my digits, right? Everything's still intact.
Yep, me too.
Oh, you want to go there now? Well, let me get a foot up here. I'll show you.
I got my bandages off. I'll gross you guys out.
I don't know what this means, but Tim wants to know if you watch Mentor Pilot.
I'm not familiar with Mentor Pilot. Is that on YouTube? I can track it down.
Anybody know what that is?
I don't know.
No idea.
Tim, explain.
Explain,
That's a
Tim.
Montana thing.
How about
Linda,
Flight Shop?
calm down. Sorry, go ahead.
Have I
Have
flown
you ever
Pembroke?
flown?
No, but I want to.
Well, you can get a ride with Eric sometime.
There we go. Yeah, yeah.
He can't give you a ride down at EAA because that's considered instructional. But you can come up by us and Eric can work with you a little bit and teach you some of the stuff.
Well, as I look forward to getting back into my flying, I'm seriously debating picking up a paramotor instead of going back on the fixed wing side of things. So time will tell.
Oh, Tim says it's a commercial pilot. He has an awesome channel on YouTube.
I've
Oh.
written that down, so I'll check that out.
Jim, will we see you at Sun and Fun this year?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm going to be
you
over at
lucky.
Lakeland. On February 3rd, we're moving over to Lakeland, and I'm going to be there for the next couple months till we head back up to Wisconsin. So I will be at Sun and Fun.
Perfect.
Well, you know what you should do is connect with Gata and go see her where she flies, and her instructor will teach you some things, I'm sure.
I would love that. That'll
Yeah.
be great. Yes.
Sure,
Eric,
that would be
before-
fun. And are you flying out of the Orlando area? Because that's only about an hour from Lakeland, I think, or so, right?
Yes. There are actually a lot of schools and a great community here in Central Florida. I'll be happy to connect you with them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that would be fun. Thank you.
Oh, I got to get your YouTube channel down here real quick again. People are asking. Just go under his name, otherwise on YouTube. But I've got it right now in the chat. So you can find Jim's videos. I watched them the last couple days and pretty interesting stuff that in there. Like the intro, if you missed the intro, a lot of that was based on his videos. So thank you so much, Jim.
Oh, it's my
Please
pleasure.
come back.
It's really a pleasure. You betcha.
If
betcha there, eh?
anybody, what?
You betcha there, eh? I've got to
Yeah.
come back. You got
If anybody wants to meet Jim and the after show, you guys can log in using Google Chrome. I've got the link in the chat. Come in and say hi. We're going to make Jim stick around. We didn't tell him that we were making him stick around. So,
Just for a few minutes.
Hey, I'm happy to stick around. I'm just relaxing here. You know, there's no rockets going off tonight, so I got nothing to do but chat. Let's do it.
there you go. All right. So, next week, I think we're open again. It can be a talk night, maybe see if Jim's around again, or if somebody wants to be a guest, or somebody wants to join us in just a talk around, let's do it. But otherwise, in the meantime, please fly safe if you are flying. All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We love you. Have a good night.
Oh my, we all like to fly. Wouldn't it be nice to be on Just Want to Fly? Ooh.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the show tonight. Like Dewey said, be a guest on the show. We're always looking for new people and to hear new stories. We hope you'll get in touch with us and be a guest on the show. Love you all and fly safe.
Man, I got all the flavor bitches say I'm delicious. I'ma
Sorry, everyone. I'll make it up to you next week. Have a good night.